On episode 283 of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, we meet Dr. Joel Fuhrman and discuss his book, Fast Food Genocide. You can find the full show notes for this episode at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/283. Have you decided you're ready to make a change? To reclaim your health and fitness? The 40 Plus Fitness podcast is here for you. I'm your host, Alan Meisner. I'm an NSAM certified personal trainer with a specialization in corrective exercise and fitness nutrition. Let me be your coach as you find your way on your health and fitness journey. All right, let's go. Hello, and thank you for being here today. I'm really glad that you're a part of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, and I know you're going to really enjoy this conversation that I have today with Dr. Fuhrman. Now, before I get into it, though, I do want to do one thing. In November, there's a thing called Movember with an M. And what it basically is it's Men's Health Awareness Month. And a lot of folks will go ahead and grow a mustache. And so, guys, this is for you. And ladies, if you can get your husbands to participate, I think this is a great lesson that we can give for our kids. It's a great lesson we can get people thinking about and talking about men's health issues. So what we're going to do is during the month of November, I'm going to grow a mustache, and guys, I'd like for you to grow a mustache and post that to our group. As the mustache starts coming in, I'd really love to start seeing some pictures of your mustaches as you go. And so you can go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/group. And when you do that, you'll go to the Facebook group. And if you're not already a member of the Facebook group, it's a really cool place to go. I share a lot of motivational tips. I share episodes as they go live, remind you of some episodes that have been out before that you might have missed. And obviously, we just have conversations. So if you have a question or anything like that, that's a great place to interact with me. And it is where I spend most of my time interacting with listeners for the show and can interact with you. But for the month of November, I want you to start showing me pictures of your mustache as you start growing in your mustache. So I do hope you'll join me with this. Men's health is kind of an issue that we ignore most of our time. We don't want to think about it. Guys are, I know I am. I don't go to the doctor unless I feel like I'm about to die. And that's not the way we need to manage our health. We need to be actively engaged in managing our health. And November is a great reminder for folks to know that this is a good time to really be thinking about men's health issues and addressing them if they're coming up in our lives. So again, 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/group. Our guest today is a board-certified family physician and nutritional researcher. He specializes in preventing and reversing disease through nutrition and natural methods. I kind of like that about him because he's not take-a-pill kind of doctor. He really does understand how nutrition is affecting our health. In his new book, The Fast Food Genocide, he really does a lot of research, puts a lot into understanding what's going on with fast food, why it's causing us to have so many problems in this country and all around the world. And so I really think you're going to enjoy this conversation that I have with Dr. Fuhrman. So with no further ado, here's Dr. Joel Fuhrman. So Dr. Fuhrman, welcome to 40 Plus Fitness.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to have you actually back. So I should have said welcome back to 40 Plus Fitness because I had you on earlier. You were on episode 110 when we talked about The End of Heart Disease, your previous book, which again was another excellent book. I really enjoy the way you approach this topic of health and well-being with really good science and just really some good understanding of what's actually going on out there.
Thanks so much.
So now, the book we're talking about today is called Fast Food Genocide, and I really like, and it was really a compelling story for how you kind of put together what's happened here in the Western cultures, particularly with fast food, and how it really is, it's shortening our lives and effectively is a genocide that's affecting us younger and younger ages. So by the time this next generation gets up to my age of 50 or 51, they're going to have some significant health issues if we don't address this problem.
That's right. It's getting worse, not better. And obviously some populations are more vulnerable than others. But just to give an example, people who live in urban areas that live on mostly fast food have 10 times the heart attack risk as the general population, and also 7 times the risk of having a stroke before age 45. And a new business is blossoming in America, a business of nursing homes catering for people under the age of 50 years old who've had strokes. We're talking about teenagers, people in their 20s and 30s who are having strokes now, stuck in a nursing home, unable to move the rest of their life. So this is really sad stuff. And of course, everybody knows that Americans now consume more processed food and fast food than any other. It's the majority of the calories consumed by America. And people know it causes obesity and diabetes and heart disease and even cancer. That's well accepted. What I'm adding to the equation now is I'm showing how fast food and processed foods destroy the brain and cause mental illness, depression, lack of intelligence, loss of concentration, inability to do well in school or to perform well in your job. And of course, we're talking here about the link between candy and fast food and processed foods to drug use and criminal behavior. And if I could just say one statistic that shocks me, even as I did the research, it's the fact that the consumption of candy, soft drinks, and fast food in childhood is more closely linked with later life drug use and criminal behavior than would be poverty itself, bad parenting, or lack of parents. In other words, a better correlation between the consumption of these dangerous foods than it is between parental problems or social deprivation. And people have no idea the destructive influence that this is going on across America. They just have no idea about this.
Yeah, and I guess one of the things that I really found a little heart-wrenching in this is that while we can do all the education in the world that we want to do to say, you should not be eating fast food, the reality is a large proportion of our population just really doesn't have access to fresh, whole food.
Right, and that so we're certainly talking about a societal problem, and if we're people that believe in equality and ethics and humans being always having to have the right opportunities for all Americans, then we have to have food opportunity. And the other thing that's important here is that these like institutions, these places, the white ivory towers of learning that are telling people that poor people in urban communities, if given access to zucchini and beans and healthy fresh vegetables, aren't going to eat them because they're just going to continue to ignore that and eat the junk food and the fast food. And we're saying that's incorrect. We've proven that wrong. Is that when you give people the right type of informed consent, when they have the information at their disposal, and they can see the deprivation and the tragedies occurring all around them. They can see people getting leg amputations. They can see people becoming demented and blind. They can see people becoming diabetic. And if they could see that they're destroying their brains and creating the inability to concentrate, and how their intelligence is being taken away from them, and how addictive these foods are. At the same time you supply the foods and make them affordable, it's shown that these populations will change. And it's also been shown that when people make the changes, there's tremendous societal benefit. Crime rates go down. People do better in school. They start attending colleges. The whole society benefits. We all benefit. So that I think that on one hand, we could say how tragic what's happening is, and how sad that heart attacks never have to occur and strokes don't have to occur and all these problems don't have to occur. But on the hope side, we can say that if people learn this information, we really got this information out across America, there's tremendous hope because we could have the best health care, we could drop heart attack rates and strokes down, we could reduce cancer, we can stop mental illness, we can stop people with depression, we can elevate urban populations so they can be achieved, to have scholastic achievement and come out of poverty. There's so much we can accomplish with more food fairness. Yeah,
and as you kind of said in the book, and I love this phrase, is by itself a single pebble is harmless. But we're starting something much deeper and harder than just that single pebble. It's an avalanche of problems that we're creating for ourselves as a nation. If we don't do something to kind of solve this problem. Now, as you got into it, and I think this is one of the core things of, and I have this conversation with people I'm dealing with, my clients and whatnot, and I'll tell them, if you're eating good whole foods, your tendency to overeat goes away because you're getting the nutrition you need. So can you talk a little bit about the nutritional density of food and how that relates to overeating?
That's right. Real food supplies us with micronutrients which do not contain calories. So the food gives us macronutrients, which contain calories, fat, carbohydrate, and protein. But it also gives us micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, and antioxidants, which the body needs to sustain wellness for the cells, to protect themselves and keep themselves clean, to prevent inflammation, to prevent disease, to retard dementia, cancer. In other words, we need these micronutrients. And what I've shown, and one of my biggest contributions to this field of nutritional science, is when people improve the micronutrient density of their diet, when they achieve micronutrient adequacy, and they get the full spectrum of micronutrients humans are supposed to have in enough quantity and enough the quantity and of course the variation and full spectrum of micronutrients, they don't have as much hunger, they don't have as much food cravings, and they become more in tune instinctually with the right amount of calories they need to maintain a healthy weight. They no longer want to eat so much that they become overweight. What I'm saying right now is that the low nutrient American diet that's half processed foods, it's about 60% of calories from processed foods and about 30% of animal products, that both processed foods and animal products do not contain antioxidants and phytochemicals. And when there's such a low level of these protective nutrients circulating in our tissues, we build up free radicals and advanced glycation end products and other toxins, aldehydes. We have more toxic waste products in the body. And then when we're not digesting food, when we're in that catabolic state between meals, the body can try to repair and remove those toxins. And most Americans feel shaky and weak and headachy and stomach cramping and fatigued. And they have to overeat. They have to stop the detox process because they can't tolerate living in a phase of digestion when they're not busy digesting food. What I'm saying right now is that eating and digesting stops the detox and makes you feel better. So because the quality of the American diet is so poor, they have to continually put food in their body, and they have to continually overeat, lest they feel too sickly and shaky and weak and fatigued. And they think they're eating to keep their energy up, but it really is a form of addictive eating, because it's like smoking a cigarette. You got to take that other cigarette because you don't like the way you feel when you stop. You got to have that more cocaine because because you're too uncomfortable when you stop the cocaine. People feel too uncomfortable when they stop eating unhealthy food, so they got to keep eating to feel okay. So they have to become overweight, and they have to drive this disease process. And these highly calorically concentrated foods with no nutrients in them have been designed to be addictive. They're highly palatable, and they're calorically concentration. And the definition of fast food is that you can eat it fast, you can prepare it fast, but it's absorbed into the bloodstream so rapidly. And when calories rush into the bloodstream in such a large amount so quickly, it sets off dopamine receptors in the brain that just like the same dopamine receptors that would have been set off had you used narcotics or snorted cocaine. So you develop that unrelenting craving for those foods. At the same time now, when you're not eating them, you're feeling uncomfortable. So just like cocaine has a high and a low, you feel better when you do it, and you're going to crave it, but then when you're not taking it, you just can't tolerate not doing anything. You're thinking about it all the time. So the foods are designed that way, and this is what makes it so treacherous and so difficult for people to control their appetites, and why we have the most overweight, obese population in the history of the human race.
And it's not that one fast food meal is going to do it, but the problem is that one fast food meal is going to set up a chain reaction where there's then the snack or the next fast food meal, or the concept of the second breakfast. I don't know if you've heard of this, but that people eat such a starchy, horrible breakfast that, processed breakfast, that by the time 10 o'clock rolls around, they're hungry again and they're eating a second breakfast. They're not even calling it a snack anymore because it truly is an entire second breakfast.
Right. And I have a name for that, and I call that toxic hunger, to differentiate toxic hunger from true hunger, because there's no need for calories. What they need is to stop. They have to get digestion going again, so they can feel stimulated, so they don't feel ill. So they have to keep eating. They have to keep their digestive tract busy at all times. And if you don't mind, let me clarify something, because when we're using this term fast food, it includes soda and candy and white bread and bagels and cookies and white flour pasta and pizza, and we're talking about chips and convenience food. So it's not just foods you purchase in a fast food restaurant. I mean, a fast food restaurant could serve chili, and it could serve a healthy chili or a healthy salad. We don't, it's possible in the future that people could choose to make some healthy fast food. The point I'm making is that we're talking about foods that are processed, contain white flour and sugar, often fried in oil, highly flavored, calorically concentrated, and they can be purchased in convenience stores, in supermarkets. It's not just fast food establishments that sell these processed, low-nutrient, dangerous foods.
Yeah. And I think that's a key point, because it's not just us, saying the fast food restaurants. It's literally everything that's being pushed at us that's coming in a box, a package, or whatnot. It's just not a whole food. And I think people know you can't eat 500 calories. You can hardly eat 500 calories worth of greens, because it's just so much. And if you were eating that, you would be getting the phytochemicals and the nutrients and whatnot, and your hunger signals would click on to say, okay, that's enough. We're full here. And then your body has to take its time to process all the fiber and those nutrients, so it kind of slows that whole process down.
That's right. If you had beans and peppers and eggplant and mushrooms and green vegetables and string beans and artichokes and whatever you ate, if you just ate natural plants and some papaya in there, whatever it is, the human stomach can only hold a liter of food, 1 liter comfortably. And if you add up a liter of mixed vegetation like that, it only comes out to between 300 and 450 calories. You can't even put more than 500 calories in at one time, unless you put some concentrated calories in there, like oils and and cheeses and meats and things like that. It's very hard. It's very hard to overeat. And people and the point that we're making here too is that people don't want to overeat. They feel satiated on the right amount of calories when they eat healthfully. So it's about the quality here, and that's why I make the joke. I say that after years of study and contemplation, I finally figured out that Skipper never really lived on that island. Do you get that joke?
I don't.
You never watched Gilligan's? Are you too young? You never watched?
No, I watched it, but I was probably 12 years old. So from a memory perspective, I probably don't. I didn't absorb it the way you might have.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm going to think on that. Maybe I'll figure that out, or maybe someone that's listening to this can
see. Skipper was the what is it? He was
captain of the boat,
the captain of the ship, and he had shipwrecked on an island, living on an island, so they could only eat natural foods, and he was still obese on the island.
Okay.
So the point is, I'm saying Skipper never really lived on that island. He couldn't have been overweight like that if he was really on an island like that.
Thurston was a little heavy too at times, but okay. So I do remember a little bit about it. Okay, good. So now you have this acronym called GBOMS that kind of gives you some guidelines of the types of foods that you should be including in your diet. Do you mind going through GBOMS?
Yes, and the reason the acronym GBOMS exists is because in my book Superimmunity, I was showing the research and identifying the foods that offer the most protection against cancer. We're using scientific studies to show that people who eat these foods have dramatically low rates of cancer in later life. And I discussed in the GBOMS, GBOMBS stands for greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. With the seeds, we're talking here about flax seeds, chia seeds, sesame seeds. And the point is that we can look at any one of these foods individually, and we can show between a 50% to 88% reduction in cancer for people who eat these foods regularly. But what a nutritarian diet does is it puts together a portfolio of all the foods that have been scientifically shown to protect against cancer. And when you put these foods together in one diet, they work synergistically, and then we really have control, and we can say, well, we don't have to get cancer. We can wipe out prostate cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer, things like that. And the studies support this, that cancer is not the inevitable consequence of aging. It's not luck. It's not primarily from pesticides. It's we're not eating enough of the produce and these phytochemicals that humans need to arm the immune system. And interestingly, people might be interested to know this, is that as president of the Nutritional Research Foundation, we started a study with nutritarian women called the Nutritarian Women's Health Study. And our goal is to sign up 10,000 women who are pledging to eat GBOMS every day. And we're going to track them over a 10 or 20 year period. And we already have 2,000 women signed up for the study. The study is run out of Northern Arizona University. They have a nutritarian research office there. And if any women are listening and want to join our study and get the information how we're on this anti-breast cancer protocol to show that nutritarian women will not get breast cancer, and if you have breast cancer or an early stage of breast cancer, or you had breast cancer, you're welcome to join the study too, because we want all the data on these people, and we're going to be doing blood tests. And the point is that we have new technology coming out that shows that we can detect cancer in its very early stage with blood work, way 10 years before a mammogram can, and we'll be able to track these women over upcoming years. So the website, if people are interested in that, is nutritionalresearch.org. Nutritionalresearch.org is our nonprofit that sets up these research studies around the country.
Okay, cool. So basically, you want to try to get the foods that are in the G-bombs, those you said greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. You want to be making sure that you get some of those in your diet each and every day.
Or almost every day. I probably eat mushrooms 5 days out of 7, you know what I mean? So almost every day. I certainly eat green vegetables every day and seeds every day. I make sure I put, flax seeds or chia seeds in my morning oatmeal or oats or whatever as a meeting or an avocado. I always get that in there some way.
Yeah.
And just to give an example, if I could just give one example of one of those foods, like take flax seeds, for example. A study showed that women who had breast cancer, who followed for 10 years, found that those who had 0.3 milligrams, a third of a milligram of the lignin from flax seeds every day, on an average every day, had a 71% decreased risk of dying of breast cancer over that 10-year period compared to people who did not have lignins in their diet. That's just one food. It's not all the other 50 foods they're eating, just the one. And the women who had a 71 decreased risk of dying of breast cancer were only eating a third of a milligram of lignin. Now, a tablespoon of flaxseed has 21 milligrams. They were having 1/60th of that, and it's still reduced. And the records, so they're way too low of an amount, and we could have even reduced it more. But here's the one more thing to consider, is that once you wait till you have cancer to have it, the effects are much lower, much less. It still showed that tremendous protection even when they had cancer. What if you start doing it when you're a teenager, or maybe when you're 30s or 40s before you get cancer? The point, and that's just from the flax seeds alone, and not even enough. What if you put the mushrooms and the onions? So we're talking here about that people don't realize the incredible power that these healthy foods have to control our health destiny when you include them in the right amounts and the right relationship, and you remove the actual dangerous foods from your diet. So this gives, I feel, if people had this informed consent, if they really knew what they could achieve and keep their full mental faculties in their later years and live to be 100 years old in great health, there'd be millions of more people doing this, and people would embrace this.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think, one of the problems, we're not born with a user manual, so people are trying to figure things out for themselves, and they hear something that sounds really good. The theory behind it seems to make sense, but when you kind of put it all together, you just, they go with it, but they don't know. The doctor's saying one thing, or, friends saying they tried something else. They see someone lose a lot of weight, and they're like, what did you do? Well, I did what Penn Jillette did, and I did the potato diet for a month, and that's how I lost the weight. But they gain it back, or something else happens, and so I think there's just so much information circling that it's sometimes it's tough, but the information is there, and it's just a kind of a point of really breaking this down and knowing that if you're getting good nutrition, which these foods have, you're going to get all the micronutrients that you need. And the reality is, if you're getting those, more than likely you're also getting the macros that you need, because your body is going to eat to satiety. And then you're going to be fine.
Well, Americans are eating, the macronutrients shorten your lifespan. Let me say this one more time, that almost every American overeats on calories. And we're talking about Americans who eat too much fat, they eat too much protein, and too much carbohydrate. They eat too much of everything. So we don't really have a problem with starvation here, or with people. So one of the only things ever been proven to extend lifespan in all species of animal, including primates, is cutting back on calories. So that means eating less calories in an environment of micronutrient adequacy. I can say that again. We have to eat less calories and still achieve micronutrient adequacy. But what I'm saying here is that as you achieve micronutrient adequacy, as you achieve a higher concentration of micronutrients in your diet, your desire for calories goes down, and you start to be in direct touch with the amount of calories you need. So let's assume that you ate 25 calories too much every day. It's not so bad, just 25 calories too much.
The average American it's like an almond and a half.
Right. The average American eats 400 to 500 calories too much. They eat about 400, 500 calories from oil alone. But in any case, so the 25 calories to too much would be about 10,000 calories a year too much, and that's about 3 pounds.
3 pounds, yeah.
3 pounds a year over 10 years. That's 30 pounds. That's 15 years off your life. That's dangerous.
Yeah.
Now, what if you ate 25 to 50 calories too little every day? Would you become too thin? Would you become anorexic? Would you waste away? And the answer is no. You would reach your ideal weight, and as you cut back your calories by 50 to 100 calories a day, your metabolic rate would slow down. Your respiratory quotient and your amount of calories you breathe would increase. You'd conserve calories so your weight would stay stable at a healthy, lighter weight. You wouldn't keep losing. In the process of you under-eating slightly and your weight being stable, and you slow down the metabolic rate, you'd be aging slower, and you would now have the opportunity to live to be 100 years old because you're eating slightly less calories than you need each day. What I'm saying here is almost everybody out there thinks that we have to try to speed up our metabolic rate so we can eat more. So we want to speed up our metabolic rate so we can eat more calories and not get fat. That's not what we want to do to extend lifespan. We actually want to slow down the metabolic rate so we can eat less food and not get too thin.
Yeah.
You follow me?
I do, absolutely. And I've seen studies that actually, lots of studies that have actually indicated that's it. It's really kind of finding that balance. And
that's an overwhelming amount of studies. Matter of fact, people who run higher thyroid numbers have a shorter lifespan generally. So you have these doctors that overprescribe thyroid medication when people lose more weight on it, lower cholesterol with the thyroid medications, but they're not going to survive as much. They're better off giving them lower dosages. The point I'm making is that it's better to have, you want people's thyroid to be normal, but all these tricks and all these shortcuts to think you're going to help you lose weight don't work. They sacrifice your health in the process. There's only one way to be healthy, and that's the healthy foods. And if you do that, then you'll be able to control your appetite. There's no free ride. There's no magic. You have to eat high nutrient foods.
Yeah. Now, I definitely agree with the no free ride, but the honest truth is, I think a lot of us would really struggle if, not all of us, but many would struggle if you just said, okay, you have to go completely without meat. So you have a concept in the book you put forward as a meat spectrum. And I think that's what I like about the nutritarian diet is, obviously you don't need a ton of meat. You don't need a ton of protein. And you can actually get most of what you need from a protein perspective. You get all of what you need from a protein perspective with the foods that are in the G-bombs. So all you don't really need the meat, but occasionally, having a little bit is probably what a lot of people will do. But you have people that are all the way from vegan all the way up to, not regular meat eaters, but, once or twice a month or something like that. So could you kind of talk about the meat spectrum and how it relates to the nutritarian diet?
Sure. Oh, and I just want to clarify something. I'm not saying that people should only eat G-bombs, by the way. I'm just identifying G-bombs as those foods that are most powerfully protective against cancer to include in your diet again. You can eat oatmeal. You can eat other things that aren't G-bombs, obviously. I'm just saying I want people to eat their G-bombs every day, a large salad every day. I want them to put nuts and seeds on in the dressing. I want them, but I want them not to eat fried foods too, because I discuss very strongly that when you cook, oil is fattening enough, but when you heat it up, it causes rancid compounds that are carcinogenic. So especially when you're eating in a fast food restaurant, and those oils are reheated over and over again, that's really dangerous stuff. That's even one serving of commercially French fries a week has been shown to increase breast cancer by 26% and prostate cancer by about 30%. So we're talking here about tremendously dangerous food. All right, getting back to your question about animal products. We know that Americans eat an excess amount of animal products, and the high amounts of animal products they consume drive up a hormone called IGF-1. And higher levels of IGF-1 are unquestionably and very well documented to be associated with dementia, aging of the brain, shortening the lifespan. And so that's one thing we know, that in the level of animal products Americans eat, about 30% of the total caloric intake, that's a dangerous amount of animal product to be eating. And then you have some diet styles out there, paleo-type diets that are recommending people eat more than 30%, 40%, 50, 60, 70% or more. It's just irresponsible advice. Okay, so on one hand, we know that animal products have to be limited, but the question is how limited? And I'm saying that if we look at the blue zones and we look at most of the longevity studies, we have to agree that it's more favorable to keep animal products below 10% of total calories. Now, 10% is a lot of animal products. 10% of total calories, that's a serving of animal product every day. That's about 20 ounces of animal product a week. It's a pretty big amount. I find that when we're looking for maximal reversal of disease, people reversing heart disease, trying to lose weight, or really reverse a disease process, and maybe even maximize longevity, the science appears to hint that 5% or below is likely ideal. Now, whether 0 is ideal over 5%, that's questionable. That we don't know. And we know that when you go to a diet that's completely vegan, which may be the most lifespan promoting diet if supplemented properly, but then as vegan, you're deficient in B12, you're deficient in omega-3 fatty acids, you're borderline deficient, you could be low in zinc and iodine and K2 as well, and vitamin D as well, but you're certainly, and we did a study on 166 vegans showing more than 66% were dangerously low in DHA, which could, at the levels which could cause shrinkage of the brain with aging. And once your brain shrinks, it's not coming back. So it may be the case that a properly supplemented vegan diet might be the ideal way of longevity. But in the Adventist Health Study, we found that the vegans who did not eat nuts and seeds and kept their diet low in fat did not live the longest. It was the vegans that lived the longest, and very close to them were the people who were flexitarians, who ate some animal products, who also ate nuts and seeds. So in that spectrum of animal product consumption, you're above 30% of calories like animal products most Americans eat, you're in a danger zone because most people in America develop heart disease, develop atherosclerosis on that diet and propensity to cancer. In the 15 to 25% range, then genetics are going to play a role because some people genetically may handle 20% and some people genetically may do okay with that, but in that spectrum, you're going to see a lot of disease. Not everybody getting disease, but you'll see a lot. If we want populations where almost nobody gets diseases like heart attacks and cancers, we have to drop below 10%. And maybe for people who are most genetically susceptible to animal product-generated disease, we probably should drop below 5% of calories in animal product. And that's my best educated guess. This is a soft science. I can't give you these numbers are not precision. It's just my best estimate based on reading tens of thousands of studies. And I spent my life reviewing every study out there on nutrition, longevity, disease reversal. And now I've been in practice 30 years applying this with patients, seeing what it takes for people to get rid of lupus, to get rid of psoriasis, to get rid of atherosclerosis, to get rid of multiple sclerosis, and to get rid of their asthma and their headaches. So I really using nutritional excellence as a therapeutic tool to reverse disease in a very powerful and profound way.
Yeah, and I think the reality of this is if you got sick eating the way you're eating, you're doing it wrong, and you need to eat another way. And so that's not a impetus to say I have to change something because I ate this way to get this way. And if I don't want to be sick, then I'm going to have to change what I eat.
And people don't, and everybody's overweight, right? Almost everybody has a BMI above 23. And if your BMI is above 23, even if it's above 25 and it's all muscle, you're still shortening your lifespan. Even if your body fat's low and your BMI is above 25 and it's muscle, it's shown to be short lifespan shortening. But in any case, what I'm saying right now is that even though we're talking here about animal products, most people on a vegan diet are not healthy. They're overweight. They're eating processed foods. Yeah. And the processed foods are probably more dangerous than a little bit of animal products. They probably they would have been healthier had they cut out the processed foods and eat a little bit of animal products if that was the case. Because we're finding out that these processed foods, these fried foods, these white flour, these sugar, the honey, maple syrup, agave nectar, all the junk that people are eating, they're in the vegan category, is lifespan shortening. And these vegan populations don't have great statistics because they're still not eating an ideal diet. So that's why I coined this term nutritarian. Yeah. So it can encompass that you're vegan on a very healthy diet that's appropriately supplemented, or a person who eats a reasonable amount of animal products, low amounts of animal products, but the diet is well perfused with high amounts of nutrient-rich vegetation to make sure they're getting all those phytochemicals and antioxidants to fight cancer.
Excellent. And that's why I said I like the flexibility of it to say you've got to find the lifestyle and the nutrition of what you need for your body, and it is still on a spectrum a little lower than what we're already doing. But obviously, like I said, if you're sick, you have to rethink your mode, and this is a great paradigm for folks to consider as a way of making a lifestyle change, working their way down that spectrum to get comfortable.
That's right. And of course, the most important meal not to eat is dinner. In other words, it's not good to go to sleep on a full stomach. That's lifespan shortening. You should eat you should eat earlier at night, and you should eat lighter at night, because you should try to go to bed without a big meal in your stomach. Another study, for example, showed that people, same calories, same diet. These women who had breast cancer again, they followed for 10 years, and they found that people who ate dinner with a 13-hour window between the end of dinner and the start of breakfast. That means they had to finish dinner early enough to be without eating but for 13 hours. again had a 30% low risk of breast cancer recurrence and breast cancer death because they finished dinner earlier. But we know in general that if we're eating right, we don't need to eat as frequently. Another myth, because people think you got to keep eating frequently, or keep the food in, stoke the fires, keep your metabolism up. All this comic book and magazine science people get about these dietary advice, feeding people's addictions, because people feel hypoglycemia when they don't keep eating all the time because their diet isn't nutritionally adequate enough. So of course they're going to feel ill when they're not eating. So you got to keep eating all the time. And what I'm saying right now is that frequent eating shortens your lifespan tremendously. We have to eat more infrequently. And when you eat right, you're not hungry all the time. And when you get hungry, there's a true biological need for calories. Your body's a precise computer within 25 calories a day, telling you exactly the right amount of calories to eat each day. So we're more comfortable eating less food. And the next thing is that your taste improves, your smell improves, your senses improve, and food tastes better. And when I did a study on this, published in a 2012 issue of Nutrition Journal, October 2012 issue of Nutrition Journal, the study was entitled "The Changing Perceptions of Hunger on a High Nutrient Density Diet." And this study had more than 750 people. And it showed that not only did their appetite go down and their desire for calories decreased when they ate more nutrients, but it also showed they enjoyed the flavor and enjoyed the diet more once their health improved. And it took about 6 months. After about 6 months of eating this really healthy diet, they enjoyed it as much or more than their former diet, which they thought they couldn't live without. And most people out there thinking to themselves, they're listening to us talk, and I know what they're thinking. They're thinking, yeah, that sounds really healthy, but that sounds really positive, but I no way I'm doing that. Yeah. I just want to enjoy my life and eat what I feel like eating. I don't care if I die a little younger. I don't have to live to be 100. I just want to enjoy my life as much as I can. But the myth in that is that they're addicted to food, and those are people who think they can't do it or they don't want to do it, need it the most. And they're not enjoying their life more. That nutritarian food tastes phenomenally delicious, and your taste actually improves, and you enjoy eating just as much. You enjoy eating higher bulk and higher volume of food, but you're not eating as much calories, and you're just as satisfied. And I did in these studies. So for people who are thinking, I'll just live a shorter life and have more enjoyment, that's like saying, I'll just live a shorter life and smoke cigarettes or cocaine. Because people, when they're addicts, the addiction takes over part of the brain, and they come up with delusional rationalizations why it's okay to continue their addiction, and changing their life sounds ridiculous to them or almost impossible for them to do.
Yeah. And again, I want to thank you for the book. It was like I said, it was very interesting to kind of go through it. It's I would call it brain candy for people who really like nutrition, because it is kind of it's an enjoyable read to kind of go through the science, to go through some of the history, and to kind of see how you put this all together in a very compelling storyline and a very compelling, premise, because it is genocide. It is happening. And it's happening to us each day if we don't take the time to take control of our own nutrition. So, Dr. Fuhrman, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, learn more about the book, Fast Food Genocide, where would you like for me to send them?
Well, certainly they can come to my website, drfuhrman.com, and they can see which book of mine that might be right for them. But my new book, Fast Food Genocide, just coming out now, I really think this is going to be a book that's going to hit a nerve in people and spark them to change their life, and spark us all to work together as Americans to really help the people across America and have food equality for all. And we could eliminate poverty. And I discuss food and racism and food and loss of intelligence and food and how food can create mental illness and crime. And I just think that if people knew all the statistics from these studies, we'd have such a better country. We'd have things going on in our country. We'd all be working together. Things would just be tremendously beneficial. So I'm just very excited about getting people to read this information in the book Fast Food Genocide.
Excellent. And before I let you go, can you repeat that website for the ladies that want to get into the nutritarian diet study?
Sure. That's nutritionalresearch.org.
Okay.
For people who want to see the nonprofit who supports and pays for nutritional research. And they can find the link to the Nutritarian Women's Health Study right there at nutritionalresearch.org. And my website, obviously, is drfuhrman.com, which is drfuhrman.com.
Okay. And this is going to be episode 283. So if you're running or you're driving and you can't write that down, just go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/283, and I'll be sure to have those links there. So again, Dr. Fuhrman, thank you so much for being a part of 40 Plus Fitness again.
My pleasure. Thank you, and good luck and good health to you and all your listeners.
You too. Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, would you please share it with friends and family? Thank you. Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we meet Dr. Sarah Myhill and discuss her book, The PK Cookbook. Until then, have a happy and healthy week.